From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. Welcome to the State of Client Acquisition. This is your host, Michael Bohannes. In today's episode, I am interviewing Ben Chan, who's a management consultant in Calgary, Canada. And Ben is an interesting story. He is looking to productize his consulting skills. He's been working with one major client for the recent 1.5 years, and he is looking to productize the skills that he has gained on that project and the skills that he had before, to productize it to help project managers to be better at their job. And it's one of those interesting cases where the consulting service that he's providing now and the product that he's planning to launch are related but not entirely the same. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope it can give you some inspiration of maybe it would be difficult to productize your own existing business, but maybe there is something on the periphery that you could productize into. Another client of mine it's kind of related, a recent client who joined, she is a financial consultant, and she is now launching a program to help finance managers to become better at their job when they get promoted as finance directors in companies. So it's not exactly the same job, but it's something in the periphery. So I encourage you to think about, if you are looking to scale your business from service into something that is more like a product, coaching and group training packages, is this something on the periphery that you could do that could potentially be scalable? Anyway, without further ado, this is Ben Chan and his plans to launch a product. Right, so today's guest on the State of Client Acquisition is Ben Chan, who's a strategy consultant in Calgary, Alberta, helping companies in various industries with project execution and implementing strategic priorities. Ben has been running his business Climb Consulting since early 2020, so we'll definitely have a few interesting stories to share there, how it is starting up in the middle of the pandemic. But I don't want to preempt that. Ben, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. So Ben, you and I met because we started talking about your upcoming shift, if you want, in your consulting business. What is the story? What are you planning to do in the coming months?
Well, really what I've started to see, and it's a lot more through the personal experience of, organizations have a lot of projects. They have project managers come in, they have PMP, they have Agile, they have all these certifications. And what I've noticed is there's a bit of a gap of, even if you have those designations, it doesn't necessarily mean you're great at running a project. And so the piece that I'm working on, and from a venture side of it, is kind of bridging that gap. And what are the other skills that help project managers become project leaders, and augmenting that with even just things around coaching or asking the right questions, making sure you're building what you need for the right solution, and enabling project managers to be able to then escalate or augment their skills so that they can be more effective at delivery. But for the longest time, through management consulting, is just helping to deliver a lot of different projects, over many different industries. And so whether it be banking, fintech, oil and gas, municipal, done projects across a lot of it. And for me, it's actually been very interesting in that I haven't necessarily been a SME in saying, hey, I deliver only this type of project, like only IT projects or only ERP projects. It's been a whole gamut of them. And yet, I've still been very successful at doing it. And so that kind of sparked my thinking into what helps a project manager help to go and deliver across so many different areas.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, because that was one of the things when I saw your website. It's like your description of what you do reads like sort of like a bigger company. I really had that thought when, this doesn't sound like a solo consultant. It sounds like a management consulting firm that offers different services, because the breadth is quite impressive. And so it seems that the thing that's holding it all together seems to be your project management execution skills, that this is the thing that you are trying to impart to people. Is that right?
Yeah. And even just, the subtleties of how do you build a plan, and even just building relationships, right? with the team, with your stakeholders, and building that connection really helps to go and bridge gaps across so many different industries that, you rely on your team to be able to go and help bring apart the details or subtleties within those areas, right? But where I see the project manager, and maybe this is somewhat different than where industry sees it, is it's really helping the team to be able to go and execute. It doesn't necessarily mean I need to know how to implement something into the cloud. My team will know how to go and do it. What I need to go and do is help lead them to do that cohesively as a team, right? And so, you look at a lot of job descriptions and they'll say, oh, you need this many years experience and this type of specialty. And yet, more often than not, I've been brought in to help rescue these projects. And I'll say outright to them and say, hey, I don't have any experience in doing it, but I can certainly try and help you. And more often than not, I've been able to go and help deliver a lot of success and value to the client. So it's been interesting in that respect.
That's awesome. And that sounds like an unlikely sales pitch. Hey, I just don't know much about it, but I may be able to help you. Sure, come on.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just a really good Swiss Army knife. I'm not sure.
That's very interesting. Okay, cool. Well, tell us to the beginning. So you started out, as I can see in your LinkedIn profile, in January 2020. What were you doing before that? How did the idea come about to start Climb Consulting? Where did you see a need in the market? And how were the first few months through the pandemic?
Well, I actually had broken out of my old consulting group there. And where I felt the need was just almost a need for freedom. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I always kind of view myself I like to do what I want to do. And so I just started Climb Consulting to be able to give myself that freedom. Now when I did go and start the job, I did have a contract already lined up. And so it was doing like a cloud implementation of new software and things like that. Again, something I've never done before, but I'll be like, sure, yeah, I'll go ahead and try that out. And it was interesting kind of going into the pandemic, because I remember stepping in one day, I looked at my phone taking the train into work, and there was the first reported case of COVID in, a daycare inside downtown Calgary. The moment I stepped in, I told my team, everyone, find everything you need, get ready to pack up. Because we're going to be working remotely most likely, and we're going to have to figure this out. And who knows how it'll be. Lucky enough, we had a really strong team. We already had a good cohesive bond in terms of helping to go and deliver. But, trying to go and get through the pandemic working remotely and things like that was actually very easy. We tried to go and make it fun. And so what I wanted the team to do was actually lean into their authenticity, to be able to go and feel comfortable of showing who they are in how they work. And so you'll probably see from the background here and my shirt and things like that is, I'm a bit of a comic book nerd, and I encourage the rest of the team to be able to go and do that. And so some of the techniques we used were, let's have weekly themes for our stand-up meetings or all our meetings, and feel free to use it on the client to, express yourself. It's okay. So, some days we would have, what's your favorite food week? People would find pictures of pizza or sushi or whatever it might be. Another week was, what's your favorite movie? And it started to evolve into like, hey, it's Keanu Reeves week. Everyone has to find a background of Keanu Reeves and spend 15 minutes a week. Just, look for backgrounds. That's okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Good.
Keeping it fun.
Definitely. So in terms of client acquisition, you said that you had this one client already lined up. Mm-hmm. How did you get other clients throughout this time, or did you just have this one?
It was just this one, and a lot of it is because I am a solopreneur, and all of my work is very client service based, right? Dollars per hour kind of thing. And so I only have capacity for one at a time at the moment. But in terms of client acquisition, a lot of it was based off of the relationships that I've built in the past. At the same time, I definitely looked forward to, trying new and different things. And so whether it was reaching out to people on LinkedIn and, building the right, I almost want to say courage to go and say, hey, thought it'd be interesting to connect, and not necessarily expecting anything out of it more than it is learning more about someone, building a relationship, or learning more about a different industry that maybe I was interested in.
Okay. And you also run a podcast. Has that been helpful for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the podcast I started was built a little bit out of being home and having the freedom of COVID to try and experiment new things. And I think it has been helpful in terms of meeting a lot of new people and people getting interested in different things. And so it's been it focuses on project leadership and transformation and talking about random things. So I don't even know exactly who my listeners are and how many necessarily. But for me, it's more of a good experimentation to go and expand myself. And that's what I've viewed COVID as an opportunity to do.
Got it. So you did not see it as a relationship building tool in order to foster future client acquisition. It was more like a fun project for you.
It was, but I think right now I'm viewing it as a more strategic tool that I can use to be able to go and build out the market and have a better way to go and express more about what I'm about, and also give people the opportunity to go and build their network as well.
Absolutely. Good. Okay. So you are primarily serving this one client. How did your thinking then evolve from doing done for you consulting execution work and going more towards the training aspect? This is what we started to talk about on LinkedIn. So I'm curious, how did that come about? How did the idea come about?
Yeah, I guess it's because, again, I'm one person and I continually get the requests of, hey, Ben, come and help me. I know you can help me go and get this done. And you're the guy to go and do it. But I only have so much time during the day to be able to do all of those things. And so it kind of popped in my head of, they don't need me or more of my time. What I think organizations and people need is people that can help deliver the way that I do and use different methodologies and use, kind of the shared knowledge to be able to go and then help execute better within their organizations. And so my thought is, rather than, hey, Ben, sign here so that we can get you working on this, is I would rather improve existing project managers so that they can do what I do.
Absolutely. Okay, good. So the plan would be to create something of a training program, like a training/coaching program for in-house project managers. Is there any industry focus on this, or?
No, and that's kind of the interesting thing, because I myself I wouldn't say I'm industry focused. And so this is focused on almost industry agnostic as well as methodology agnostic. So you can be using waterfall or agile or a hybrid. Doesn't really matter. You could be involved in, capital builds or software implementation, cloud implementation, strategic planning projects, whatever it might be. It's agnostic to all of that. And so instead, it's kind of looking at the skills that revolve around all of those areas that you can apply no matter what.
Interesting. So what kind of skills?
So I'd say like facilitation skills, being able to go and see how you manage a team, but also understanding yourself. And so some of the pieces that I'm working on building right now are looking at who you are as a person. And it sounds a little bit hokey at first, right? Of, oh, is this going to be some of those personality tests and things like that? But what I've seen from different people and how they behave and going back to some of the coaching science in it is, if someone's afraid to be able to go and they have problems with conflict resolution and maybe also have nervousness around talking with CEOs and things like that, how that exhibits itself is that maybe they're more hesitant to go and bring up risks or issues from projects to their sponsors, right? And so that kind of core understanding of, yeah, we know what we should be, but let's understand yourself first and almost what your baseline is, so that we can then build upon that and understand, where are areas where you might need to work a little bit harder, and where are areas of your strengths that you can continue to go and excel at. And we look at, facilitation, even the things around like questions. what's the right type of questions you should be asking to ask the right solution. Even meetings, online meetings, in-person meetings, what helps to go and run a meeting effectively to get what you want. And it's funny because, some people will book 1 hour meetings and I'll say, all right, in my head, I'll be like, the goal is to go and finish this meeting in half the time. If it's a 30-minute meeting, I want to try and finish it in 15 minutes. And what are the questions and what are the approaches to be able to go and have that work, right? And those things aren't really taught inside of, PMI or Scrum, Agile certifications, right? They give you the frameworks to be able to do it, but what's the right framework to be able to execute?
That's so interesting. So it would be, you will be training people on project execution and project management, but it would almost be like the antechamber to all the specific tools, which could be agile, waterfall, all these different certifications. It's like the thing that the training that they should get before they get these certifications. Am I getting
almost that? Yeah. I mean, it could be geared to people seeking the certifications of how should you think about things and bring it all together so that when you are presented with the tools or frameworks from the various different methodologies, that you know which one to go and do and what's appropriate. Because where, just diving into things a little bit, where I see some of the how this impacts is some people just follow the PMI to the T, right? Without consideration of the client culture, the team culture. Does that work for them?
For the listeners who don't know PMI, what is that?
Yeah, that's a Project Management Institute. And so they have, basically a world-renowned framework for how to deliver projects. And they have it very sectioned into different methodologies and things like that. Hey, here's how you build the schedule. Here's how you look at risks and issues, right? And it dives into a lot of that detail. And it gives a great recipe, but sometimes you have to use a lot of judgment to figure out what parts of the recipe should actually be using that makes it work, right? Yeah. So let's say you get a recipe for a cake, but the client actually doesn't want it that sweet. You're not necessarily going to add all that sugar in there, right?
That's very interesting. And in keeping with the cooking analogy, because I actually used to run a cooking startup once, and I realized maybe that's a good analogy here. I realized that, yes, the recipe, following the recipe, knowing the technique, how to cut the onion and all of that, that is all fine and dandy. What you need the most in order to cook successfully is you need to be good project managers, organizing, time management. Right. And so that is like, again, as I said, the antechamber, that is like, those are core skills that you need to have before. Those are like the fundamental kitchen skills that you need. You need to know if you want to, heat up a liter of water, you need to approximately have it in your mind how long that takes so that while the water is heating up, you're doing something else. And so that you know how to stack activities. So those kind of basic skills, it seems to me that this would be your training program would be teaching people these kind of basic skills before they get into the specifics of a PMI. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I think if we stick to the cooking analogy, if you also have to know who you're cooking for. Are you cooking in a kitchen where it's a generic taste for everyone, or are you a personal chef and you have to really cater to that person's, palate? Yeah. And so you're going to change that recipe according to what the customer wants, right?
Got it. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. That's really interesting. So how do you plan to structure this program? What will it look like? Can you share what are your thoughts around how do you price it? What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, so right now it's still in a very preliminary mode. I'm looking forward into Q4 to be able to go and have a large concrete framework for it. But in my head right now, and what I've been able to go and draft is, a 9-module course that steps you through all the different areas of understanding yourself and moving forward into, conflict management, and, meeting facilitation, questioning, mindset, all of those things, but also making it somewhat authentic and fun. Because when people hear project management, they don't view it as oh my gosh, let's go and have fun doing it, right? Like I would say, let's go and do this, but do it in a fun way that allows you to be able to explore yourself and expand your mindset to be able to, really learn a lot more and integrate that to experience. And so from a pricing perspective, it's still something I'm taking a look at, because I view this as something that can either be taken personally by a single person, or also by organizations with maybe a PMO that maybe wants to have all of their project managers go through a 3 or 4 day workshop to be able to go and do that. Obviously, it's a little bit harder right now inside of the COVID pandemic, or maybe it could be viewed as easier. But I think right now is seeing how the online and in-person space kind of comes together to do that.
Excellent. Good. And who's your ideal client? Who do you imagine would benefit most from this?
I think it's from the beginner to intermediate project manager, who are maybe wanting to go and find better results, deliver more client value, and or looking to be able to augment what they currently have, that they know the PMI frameworks, they know Agile, they know Waterfall, but are looking to go and reach that next level of project management and take on more challenging projects and deliver better results.
But that would be a project manager inside a standard product company, right? It would not be a specific dedicated consulting firm that delivers projects, right? Your target.
It could be any of those, actually.
Any. Okay.
If I think about just anyone, like if people wanted to go and take this to be able to deliver projects in their own personal life, that, hey, I want to go and really build a nice table with my wife. Sure, they could go and take this as well. But from a corporate side, anyone that's delivering projects to internally within their organization or for other organizations as a client, those people would be the prime target.
Awesome. Hey man, that sounds great. I really think they're 9-week. You said 9 modules? Do you plan to do it as a 9-week program, or do the modules stretch over a longer time?
It could be spread out at a longer time, depending on how much content there is, because there is quite a lot going on in my head that I'm not sure if 1 week per module may be enough.
Cool. Awesome. Man, it sounds like a great, like a great project. You clearly have the experience to show for it. So awesome stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And awesome. I mean, from your perspective, what would be kind of the formulas that would work for this type of work? Or,
one of the things that I've made some bitter lessons on is that I would sell it before I build it, right? I don't know if you plan to do that. You mentioned that you only plan to sell it in Q4, and you also mentioned that this is because you still have client engagements until August. So obviously you cannot sell it much before that. But the thing that I think in August, which is middle of Q3, personally, I would consider at least the idea of just going straight into the market, having a plan, having like a breakdown, but that could be something on 2 pages, but simply putting it in front of people and seeing if you can close them only on those 2 pages. Because at this point, at least that was my experience and that of many of my clients who did that before working with me, is that very often when you build detailed program steps, you may lose yourself in details that then in the end will prove to not be as useful for clients as you thought they would be. So I would simply close that client and then develop the program along with them. Essentially have for the module, yes, build the presentation for that week, for example, build the resources, but then deliver and see how they react, see where are the problems, instead of prefabricating it before going to market. I think that sounded to me like something that you may be, if I can say so, you may be possibly losing yourself in too much before going to market. Does that make sense, or am I off?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's almost like testing the palate and building up the recipe, right?
That's very, exactly. You do cook up the first course, so to speak.
Yeah. Let's get the appetizer out and we'll see how the main course looks like.
Exactly, but the appetizer is not yet done with all the scalable tools that you will then do when you do into factory production.
Yeah.
There's a lot of food metaphors that we use.
Hey, I like eating, so I don't know. It seems to work. Everyone eats, so definitely anybody can metaphor.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Great. Anything else I can help you with possibly? I think you're on a great track, but just wondered if there's anything else.
Yeah, no, I think it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for reaching out to me.
Absolutely. Wish you all the best, man. That sounds like a great project. I'm looking forward to it. Where should people go to learn more about that project? What if they want to sign up to it? What if you get your first client from the podcast? Where should they go?
Sure. They can go and find me at www.climbconsulting.ca. So that's CLYMB consulting.ca. On our page, we also have just a very quick product or project management survey results that I did at the early 2021 here, that people can kind of see where authenticity versus expertise, how that kind of exhibited itself inside of the market. And so we did a survey. We had over 100 people respond. There were everyone from C-suite and participants, management, and things like that they can get those results from. And they can sign up to our newsletter. And then as I progress a little bit further, I'll definitely keep people in touch. And we have a contact form that I'll definitely be checking out.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much, Ben. Great to have you.
All right. Thanks.
The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox-Grand. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com. I'll talk to you in the next episode.
Montreal girls in the tail end of winter. Caffeine burns, wide awake dreams in color. Blood on my hands in this open heart journey. And infinite numbers, rapid fire across the country. We slide tonight, and the light on the ocean so bright. With my